is retiring, giving President Trump a historic opportunity to further shape the U.S. Supreme Court. The decision capping off a week in which the High Court upheld the travel ban and delivered the left a disastrous defeat on abortion and a disastrous defeat on the political weaponization of union dues.
In our country, the selection of a justice of the United States Supreme Court is considered, I think we can all say, one of the most important events, one of the most important things for our country.
We take it all up here tonight. Famed legal scholar Alan Dershowitz joins us, professor emeritus at Harvard Law, and Rhino Paul Ryan's disastrous bill for amnesty and open borders suffering a resounding defeat on the Hill. While Trump-endorsed candidates emerged victorious in last night's primary contests across the country, we'll be talking about what it all means for the future of the Republican Party and the nation with Kimberly Guilfoyle and the dean himself, Ed Rollins. And President Trump has plenty on the Supreme Court, the midterms and beyond. He's due to speak an hour from now at a campaign rally in Fargo, North Dakota. We'll be bringing you his remarks live in their entirety on a special edition of Lou Dobbs Tonight. Our top story, a critical opportunity for the president to cement a conservative majority in the Supreme Court for a generation, perhaps two. Justice Anthony Kennedy today announcing he is retiring, stepping down from the High Court after 3 decades. His retirement effective at the end of next month. His decision comes a year after Kennedy's former law clerk, Neil Gorsuch, took over the seat occupied by the late Justice Antonin Scalia. President Trump praised Justice Kennedy after meeting with him at the White House today.
Justice Kennedy will be retiring, and he is a man that I've known for a long time and a man that I've respected for a long time. He's been a great justice of the Supreme Court. He is a man who is displaying great vision. He's displayed tremendous vision and tremendous heart, and he will be missed, but he will be retiring.
The president said he is going to work immediately to identify candidates from a list of 25 names that have been previously released. All of the candidates, well-credentialed, of course, and conservative. Justice Kennedy's retirement setting up an epic confirmation fight, a fight that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell vowed the chamber would take up this fall on Kennedy's successor. Dems are insisting that Americans should have the chance to vote first in the midterms on the senators who will either confirm or deny the nominee. Senator Schumer has a long ways to go to persuade this president or the Senate Majority Leader that he bears listening to. Joining us tonight, Congressman Matt Gaetz. He serves on a number of key committees, including Judiciary, Budget, Armed Services. Congressman, great to have you with us. Let me first get your reaction. A lot going on today, as you well know. You've been involved in much of it. Justice Kennedy's retirement, how do you feel about it? And do you have a favorite among those 25 on that special presidential list?
Well, I think there are a number of excellent choices that the president can make. And you'll remember, Lou, that a number of conservatives voted for Donald Trump because they knew that the future of the Supreme Court could be at play, could be the very deciding thing that dictates what this presidency will ultimately be judged by with the American people. And so I'm excited that he's got that opportunity. And when you look at just the decision we got today on unions, where public sector union members won't be forced to pay off union bosses just to have jobs, it certainly shows you how impactful the membership and the composition of the Supreme Court can be.
Absolutely. And those conservatives who voted for President Trump have to be feeling very good because they got an additional bonus, the most successful president in 16 months as president since FDR, and another Supreme Court justice choice to boot. Let's turn, if we may, to this peculiar, even by Paul Ryan standards, this peculiar vote that took place today in the House as he pushed forward a so-called compromise bill on amnesty and open borders, because everything that Ryan does has to be associated with amnesty and open borders, and the vote was overwhelming. It was a stunning defeat for the legislation, for the Speaker, and for K Street, the Chamber of Commerce, Business Roundtable, the Koch brothers, and Wall Street.
Well, I will tell you that there are two principal questions that divide the Republican Party on immigration, Lou. The first is the path to citizenship. I'm an immigration hardliner, I'll admit it, and I don't think that people who come here illegally should have a path to citizenship. That is not what the rule of law demands of us. Even if they have sympathetic stories, and even if we create some sort of legal status for people to work, citizenship is not something we bestow on people who come here illegally. Second thing, chain migration. Immigration hardliners do not want to see people coming to this country or being legalized as a consequence of their family relationships rather than the economic value that they can bring to the country. The America First agenda that the president is delivering on for the American people demands that we put the interests of this country first, not the interests of family reunification over our economic objective. And so I think that the president's right. Here's the question. Moving forward, will we start by negotiating from the Ryan bill, or will we start from negotiating from the bill that got 193 votes? I think we ought to start with the conservative bill and as the basis to go forward.
You're not contemplating another vote on illegal immigration, amnesty, and open borders before the midterms, are you?
Lou, we promised people a wall. We promised people a wall. We promised people we're going to get rid of the visa lottery. They were going to end chain migration. Everybody starts talking about open borders. They talk about amnesty. This should be clear to everyone now. Let's go to not just the Republicans in the House of Representatives, because there's some awful, difficult issues facing some of those people, not the least of which is their reelection. The American people are expecting this president to build a wall. That's a promise. Many of your colleagues promised to join him in that effort to build a wall. So I'm just curious how this thing gets twisted around every time. How is it that we have seen what happened since 1986 every time you listen to a Democrat promise you border security right after you vote for amnesty? This time, why doesn't every Republican pledge this? There will be no amnesty whatsoever for any illegal immigrant until the border wall is built. Not funded, not appropriated, but built, and our borders secure. Well, I would go a step further. It's not just the wall that's going to secure our borders. It's going to be E-Verify. It's going to be ending the visa lottery, entering chain migration, stopping sanctuary cities where people can come and break the law and hurt people.
I'm perfectly thrilled with that.
I want to do it all. I want to do every bit of it.
But you know what? The last time I heard people say they wanted to do it all, I witnessed about a 20-year fight over something called, quote, comprehensive immigration reform. Now, you as a practiced and veteran legislator, understand that one of the greatest and simplest ploys in Washington, D.C. is if you can't solve a problem, you make it bigger. And then you can talk comprehensive, and then you don't do anything. This time, build a wall, secure the border, and then we'll talk about how we're going to change immigration law. The American people deserve that consideration, that respect from this president and this Congress and the next one elected. Don't you agree?
Well, I do. I think we need about 30 more votes. I mean, we had 193 votes for a bill to do just that.
30 votes. You you watch this president. He works night and day. All of you.
No, he did a great job.
You work like the Dickens too. But I got to say to you, you need a speaker who will work for the American people, not for the Chamber of Commerce. Who will work for the deplorables and not for the Business Roundtable and Wall Street. Do you think that can be done? Because that's what you guys should be focusing on. Every rhino in Congress ought to be defeated, and every one of them should be defeated by a conservative Republican.
Hey, from your lips to God's ears, Lou, I would love to have more conservatives here in the Congress. We have the Congress that we have right now. And look, I think this will be an issue in the elections because, like you said, we haven't delivered on a promise. The immigration was the central issue in this last election. And my expectation is that the American people are going to be demanding a lot more of us in the midterms than we've offered them. And
another issue that it just keeps bubbling up, and we think it's near resolution, if not conclusion, and that is, of course, the conspiracy in the deep state and amongst the Dems and the left in this country who are insinuated into every part of our federal government. And today you had one of the most brazen among them, Peter Strzok, once the head of counterintelligence at the FBI, who was absolutely singular in the mid-year exam, the email scandal investigation by the FBI of Hillary Clinton, Bob Mueller's special counsel. Oh, yes, and you remember the collusion by the Trump campaign. I mean, this guy was central, and today, behind closed doors, you got to hear him.
We should have had that as an open hearing, Lou, and I expect we'll have him in front of everyone very soon. But I was most taken by the lack of curiosity of Bob Mueller when he had to reassign Peter Strzok back to the FBI. I mean, you would think when Bob Mueller found all these text messages where Peter Strzok was talking about his bias against the president, that Mueller would inquire into those things, that he would ask whether or not investigative decisions were impacted by the clear bias of his top investigator, Peter Strzok. And I am just flabbergasted that Robert Mueller didn't seem to ask the basic questions that someone would ask if they found out that their chief investigator was spewing hate and bias about the very person that they were supposed to be investigating and the Trump campaign. And so I think there are a lot more questions for Bob Mueller after Peter Strzok's interview, and my hope is that we can get this information out before the American people with public hearings and public testimony very soon.
And Strzok, did he say anything of relevance, of meaning, substance today? Or was it more of the same? Isn't he a cute little fella? And he can do what he wants to with the federal government at his disposal to frame the president of the United States when he wishes, or exonerate a candidate, a Democratic candidate for president, whenever he wishes.
It was very clear to me that Peter Strzok had deemed Hillary Clinton not guilty before even interviewing her or conducting major portions of the investigation, and he deemed Donald Trump guilty and ready for impeachment after only a day or two of opening up that investigation. The bias not only existed in the hearts of these people, it existed in the investigative decisions that they were making to make nothing of the Hillary Clinton email investigation and instead to prioritize this total hoax, this total witch hunt into Donald Trump. It is disgusting, and we need to put it on display so that it never happens in this country again.
You and I always have a candid and straightforward conversation. This Thursday, you're going to hear from Christopher Wray, from Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General at the House Judiciary Committee. They have defied oversight from the Congress throughout. They have slow-rolled the administration and you guys. How long are you going to put up with their nonsense?
I hope not too much longer, because information that we've requested before they opened up on George Papadopoulos would tell us whether or not the FBI was collecting intelligence on the Trump campaign. We need those documents. It may show payments. It may show records of sources that were being worked. And these are people who do not believe in congressional oversight. That's not my perception of their actions. It's what they've actually said. Rod Rosenstein said on May 1st that there is no constitutional basis for congressional oversight. And so we're going to press them a great deal, and we're going to try to find out the truth. And you know what? If they don't produce the documents, we need to begin impeachment, and we need to have the support of our leadership to do that. We need strong leadership on the power of Congress to conduct oversight, and we're always looking for more help from our leaders here. Well, your leadership, you need help, but you need help in the form of new leadership. I don't know if we could agree on that, but let's conclude with that statement, irrespective. Thank you very much, Congressman. Always great to have you with us, Congressman Matt Gaetz. And good luck Thursday. Thank you. Up next, another primary, another big win or two or three for President Trump. Trump-supported candidates building momentum going into the November midterms. Co-host of The Five, Kimberly Guilfoyle, joins me here next. And we're awaiting the start of President Trump's rally in Fargo, North Dakota. He won the state of North Dakota in 2016. I think the number was 95% to 5% for Hillary Clinton. I'm not overstating that, am I? We'll be back with, well, audited numbers to that effect right after these messages. We'll be bringing you the president's rally live. I love it.
Fargo, North Dakota. Stay with us. 16. This primary season leading up to the midterms looks like a replay, doesn't it? Thanks to the president's endorsements. Last night, Henry McMaster, the governor of South Carolina, securing a victory in the South Carolina primary. Dan Donovan winning big in New York. And even President Trump's old adversary, Mitt Romney, endorsed by President Trump. Amazing, amazing. I've always wanted to talk to the president about why he did that. But nonetheless, with that endorsement, Romney won in the Utah primary for the Senate. Joining us tonight, co-host of The Five, Kimberly Guilfoyle. And Kimberly, great to have you with us. The president doing it again.
Unbelievable.
And you would think there should be no doubt in the minds of anyone in the House of Representatives about attaching themselves to President Trump's Make America Great Again, or as I'm sure by the time we get to November, it's Keep America Great Again. Contract. It just seems straightforward.
But why not? I mean, it's like, I hate to be the master of the obvious, but the man knows what he's doing, okay? He knew how to defeat 16 candidates and just make short shrift of them. And now he is fulfilling all of his campaign promises and exceeding all expectations. He underpromised even and has over-delivered a number of things that, very good.
Think about the last time a president over-delivered. Huh?
I can't. When has that ever happened? So in terms of jobs, the economy, what he's trying to do even on immigration, this is a man who's very focused and determined, moving on target to achieve all of the goals. And the American people, it's resonating with them. Not just the working men and women across the country that were left behind by previous administrations. Okay? Forgotten by everybody, discarded.
3 presidents in succession who preceded President Trump. It is amazing. And by the way, the president getting so mad at Harley Davidson, he's spitting nails. And all of a sudden, so in his honor, tonight we're going to resurrect 2 terms that you don't hear in the national media anymore. The offshoring of production by Harley Davidson. That's got to stop, Harley Davidson. And so does the outsourcing that got them into the mess they were in to begin with.
He's not going to let it slide. That's the thing. You know why? Because he's putting America first and American jobs and our economy. That's the way it should be. In the past, you've had people who were apologists and felt shameful because we were making a buck here and putting dollars in people's pockets, working men and women across the country. Now he's saying to the companies, I will hold you accountable. I will call you out. I will shame you if you don't behave in the right way. I have no problem with that. It actually works because he knows what he's doing as a businessman. He knows what it takes to stimulate an economy.
The American people have learned about trade. I can tell you from having covered Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama, the 3 of them, what they knew about trade deficits, trade balances, international payment systems, you could put in a thimble. This president has taught more Americans about the importance of balanced, fair trade, reciprocal trade, and the mercantilism of both China and Germany and the European Union. Suddenly people are realizing, the president's right. The United States has been played for chumps for almost 50 straight years.
It's absolutely true. And it's just he had to call it out
because
it was appalling, because we've been subsidizing people that thumb their nose at us and show total disrespect and disregard. No more free lunch. There has to be reciprocity in business and in trade. And that's all this president is trying to do, is even out the playing field. And by the way, it's shameful behavior on previous administrations and past presidents that didn't care enough to put this country first to make sure our economy was robust and that we were getting a fair deal.
And by the way, the national left-wing media was complicit with those 3 administrations, the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, the Koch brothers, and Wall Street, because they wanted more cheap labor. They still do.
Of course they did.
Paul Ryan, for crying. I had to mention his name.
I know.
It's difficult, but there it is. I'll form the words on my lips. Paul Ryan's silly bill, a compromise bill, so he could go to his masters and say, I tried to open the borders. I tried to get you more cheap labor. And suppress wages in this country, as has been done for the past 20 years before President Trump was elected.
Yeah, no more open borders and no more globalists either, okay? Because it's not our job and responsibility to subsidize all these other countries and to have a nation that's lawless, where people are coming in, total disregard, total disrespect, coming across, and then we're made to feel sorry for it. No, get in line. follow the process that's been set up like everybody else before you. Absolutely. And quit trying to come into this country and take without doing it in the right way. Look, we love immigrants. We love people coming into the country, but there's a legal process that must be adhered to, and it must be observed by other countries. Because guess what? They don't let us just saunter in wherever we want, do they? No.
No. And we're going to build a wall because the president said so. And he is aboard that aircraft that you see right there. Air Force One has landed in Fargo, North Dakota. The president is scheduled to begin the rally at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And by the way,
well, he's the best one to sell the message, right? When he goes to these rallies, he just really, it's so exciting. People are, it resonates. He gets a lot of energy and momentum from it, and he delivers results.
I get a kick. He was in West Columbia, South Carolina, Monday night. And he started going down a nostalgic path, which everyone enjoys because it's when the country began the great turnaround under President Trump. Boy, that is some airplane. He's right. I got a kick out of him. He said in that speech that night, he said, 22 hours from Singapore. He said even in Air Force One, 22 hours is a long time.
Brutal, but look at what he delivered, and he's kept working right on the tail of that, too.
Look what else he's delivered. And more winning as he promised. I always laugh about it. But I assure you, I'm laughing from just sheer joy of the thing. And that is winning and winning and winning. The Supreme Court handing down decision after decision, whether it's it took a long time.
Yeah,
but the travel ban, I'm sorry, left wing, you're just going to have to take your nasty ideological angst and work it out with your therapist. The High Court has reinforced the Constitution, and yes, our president is in charge of national security.
Right. Well, they tried to strip him of his powers. He's commander-in-chief. It's incumbent upon him to make sure that, yes, that we have national security in this country, that people are protected. We're not a country with open borders and lawlessness.
And you know what else?
You can't tolerate it. And now he's going to get more wins because of the recent vacancy, the retirement of Justice Kennedy.
And 40 years of unions being able to confiscate the dues of people who don't want any part of the union or want to support the union's choice of candidates.
Absolutely. Now individuals can cast their ballot for the candidate that they choose and not be monopolized by these unions who really have tried to hijack elections and steal votes for years. And that's come to an end, too.
And the Trump era is beginning.
The Trump economy.
I think it's a pretty good start.
Yes, Trump national security, all of the above.
And we're going to recite all of those subjects and issues endlessly. Because we just love winning and winning.
We can't stop winning.
Thanks for being with us. Coming up, Rhino Jeff Flake. Flake, what a name for a senator. Won't be for long, though. Taking aim at President Trump again. Oh, you won't believe it this time. We'll be right back. We're taking a look at the president waving as he's coming off Air Force One in Fargo, North Dakota. Just moments ago, President Trump giving that wave before he set off to a huge rally at the Shields Arena just moments from now. We'll be bringing you every moment in our coverage when the Make America Great Again rally starts. And again, it is a matter of, we think he's going to start somewhere near 8 o'clock Eastern time. Let's turn to Rhino Senator Jeff Flake, who has, he's just an abysmal example of a senator and certainly a Republican. And again, taking petty aim at the president's travel ban order that has just been upheld by the United States Supreme Court. Now, you want to know what pettiness is and short-sightedness is? Well, just look up the word Flake. There he is, saying just because, this is a quote, just because something is constitutional doesn't make it wise, end quote. The lame duck senator also said the travel ban compromises U.S. security goals. This is a man who doesn't have either the intellect, the knowledge, or comprehension to be making any of these statements. Well, I guess as he would look at it, just because Jeff Flake is a senator, at least for a while, doesn't make him in any way relevant. Arizona will be electing Flake's replacement in 132 days, for those of you who are counting it down. Joining me now, the dean himself, Ed Rollins, chairman of the Great America PAC, Hall of Fame political consultant, White House political director under President Ronald Reagan. Great to see you.
Well, to Mr. Flake, just to finish, what the Supreme Court said is in the Constitution, the president has the power, and they just gave him back the power to basically do what's in the best interest of the country on security. Yeah. And what it's in the best interest of this country is to make sure that people who come into this country are not potential terrorists, that there's a system in place.
Are you really talking to Jeff Flake? Because he doesn't understand a word of what you're saying, I guarantee you.
Then someone needs to talk to him, because my fear is that these couple guys, you
don't have to worry about it.
All right.
He's done.
He's gone.
He's baked.
All right.
It's over. Stick the fork in.
All right, let's go.
And I, like you, wish the man had superior intelligence, but this is just not the case. Let's turn to these primary wins, which are the result of somebody with extraordinary intelligence, and that is President Donald Trump. His endorsements did pretty well last night, including Mitt Romney.
Well, he did, and I hope that Mitt Romney remembers that and is beneficial. This president has proven that he is one of the great, and I got to travel with Reagan and run his operation for many years. This president has proven his endorsement matters. Republicans who run against him or vote against him or do anything are going to pay a very heavy price. He totally turned around the Staten Island race here. We had an incumbent congressman running against a former congressman. His endorsement made a big difference. His endorsement made a big difference with McMaster's. And I would think that every Republican would want to have his endorsement and support his program. Speaking of that, I think this should be the farewell for the Speaker. He took us twice over the cliff on this immigration issue. Maybe you're not going to talk about that at this point, but I just want to make my little statement.
No, you can talk about.
It's time for him to say thank you very much. It's time. If this was a parliamentary system, he would be voted out and he'd be gone. And I think Republicans desperately need a new leader to lead them into the fall elections besides the president.
You have you worked in 3 presidential administrations. You have been up close and personal with campaigns in both the House and the Senate, as well as the presidency. What is Paul Ryan think? What would motivate the man to further humiliate himself? Is he just beyond a sense of shame, embarrassment, and has no regard at all for the interest of his conference?
Well, he's always had kind of a self-righteous quality to him, and I think
that's special.
And I think being the vice presidential candidate on the losing Romney ticket, I think put him in a different place. But I think right today, Republicans themselves have to make up their determination. They need this president. This is a great country. We need a great leader. We have a great leader in Donald Trump. Follow him over the threshold for victory in November.
You know, I just don't get it. Why in the world would the Republican conference continue to put up with it? This man has just shown himself again to be what he is. He's a loser on every level.
And he's hurting us as a party.
Ed Rollins.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Quite a night for the president and for the Republican Party, setting up quite a midterm election. Maybe a little more complicated than some on the left thought. We're going to continue in just one moment. The Supreme Court handing down more rulings, and they're really quite something. So is the retirement of Justice Kennedy next month. Stay with us. The U.S. Supreme Court delivering a major legal and political defeat for big labor in this country. The High Court ruling 5-4 today that state government workers cannot be forced to pay so-called fair share fees to support collective bargaining and other union activities, particularly political activities. Joining us tonight, renowned Harvard Law School professor, attorney Alan Dershowitz. And Alan, it is great to have you with us. This, I have to say, is the longest string of wins for conservatives in this country from the High Court that I can recall. How about you?
Well, it is a long, it's a long strain of victories. The problem is, I think the American public wants to see a Supreme Court that's nonpartisan, that's objective, that is not a Republican Supreme Court or a Democrat Supreme Court, a conservative or a liberal Supreme Court. They want to see a Supreme Court that construes the Constitution fairly and openly. And I think for the last 40 years, we've seen politicization of the court. It started with the Bork nomination and the Democrats' refusal to confirm it. It went to Bush versus Gore. It's gone on to a number of other cases. Now we see 5-4 decisions on partisan grounds. That's not good for American justice.
Yeah, but you know, if you happen to be a Republican, you happen to be a conservative, if you happen to be an independent, it's a refreshing change from the nonsense that we watched under the liberal high courts of this country that have dominated over the course of the last 40 years.
Well, you know, I think the last liberal court was the one I clerked on, which was the Warren Court back in the 1960s. Then we had Warrenberger, who was a very, very conservative, and Rehnquist, who was very conservative, and John Roberts, who's fairly conservative. It's a matter of degree, whether you think it's a conservative or a liberal court. Obviously, they did recognize gay marriage and a woman's right to choose abortion. I don't think we're going to see those decisions overruled because true conservatives also follow precedent. And the big key issue is going to be whether the president nominates a freewheeling conservative who thinks it's open to him or her to overrule long decisions, or whether a more moderate conservative who will say, look, I would have voted differently, but the law is the law and I'm not going to change it. Right.
And we've seen those decisions. And as you suggest, I mean, I peek around on MSNBC, NBC News, CBS, CNN. What's the other one? CNN. And you watch their hair's on fire talking about the decline of Roe v. Wade. They're fundraising off of a retirement announcement. It's utter idiocy for them to do so.
Look, I have to tell you, the CNN and MSNBC pundits have been wrong from day one. They predicted that the Supreme Court would overrule the travel ban. Right. They predicted so many other things that have turned out to be wrong. I would hope that these stations would play clips of their pundits when it turns out they're wrong, showing how wrong they were. And my friend and colleague and former student Jeffrey Toobin says that within a couple of years we're going to see a woman's right to choose abortion overruled. That's not going to happen. Justice Roberts is not going to vote for that.
They've lost their minds. Let's be very clear. They have completely lost their minds and their sense of proportion in politics. Let's turn, if we may, to this extraordinary moment in which the FBI agent, Peter Strzok, is behind closed doors. This is the man who was at the epicenter of the Russia collusion probe, the mid-year exam probe, the jargon that the FBI used for the Hillary Clinton email scandal. He's also was on the Bob Mueller special counsel staff. This is a guy I can't even imagine why he's walking around. It looks to me like he ought to be in jail somewhere.
Well, I don't believe in criminalizing political differences and putting people like that in jail, but he certainly shouldn't be a member of the FBI. When he is telling his friend that we're going to
probably compromise somewhere in between then.
When he says we're going to stop the election of a president, that sounds like collusion. That sounds like interference with an election. Look, I try to stop the election of President Trump by voting for Hillary Clinton, by contributing to her campaign. That's the American way to do it. But for an FBI agent to say, we're going to stop it, we're going to have an insurance policy, I want to hear how he explains that in public. And he has no right to testify behind closed doors, and I don't know why they're allowing this. If he has anything that's national security, okay. But if it's just explaining why he said these things about trying to stop a duly elected president, we're entitled to know, and we're entitled to know why he's still in the FBI.
Alan Dershowitz, always great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. Be sure to vote in tonight's poll. Should today's disastrous defeat of Rhino Paul Ryan's pro-amnesty, open borders immigration bill, should that finally bring his disastrous lame duck speakership to an end? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs. Tonight, the president in Fargo, North Dakota. Up next, is it time to ditch Mitch after the Rhino refuses to end the 60-vote filibuster rule? We take that up and much more with Charlie Hurt. And just moments from now, the president set to speak at that rally in Fargo, North Dakota. Its entirety will be carried here on the Fox Business Network in this special edition of Lou Dobbs Tonight. We'll be right back. Rhino Mitch McConnell refuses to abolish the filibuster rule in the Senate, despite the president's repeated calls to end it. Listen to McConnell's reasoning behind his decision.
With regard to the filibuster rule, as I've told him repeatedly, the votes aren't there to change it. They just aren't there. It's not just me. I think it's protected the country from wide swings one way or the other, and is good for the country and is not likely to change.
Do you buy that? Well, joining us to sort it out, Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor, Fox Business contributor, and savant on all things Washington, especially the good things, not the bad things. Good to have you with us.
Great to be with you, Lou.
Does Mitch McConnell make any sense? He doesn't have the votes. Did Harry Reid have the votes?
yeah. There's no doubt that that you're exactly right. When the next time Democrats are in control of the Senate, that you can bet they will end the filibuster. There is absolutely no question about that whatsoever. But Mitch McConnell does have have forces within the Republican caucus that would not go along with something like this. And
who are those forces? Let's identify them for people and what their interests are.
Well, I'm sure there's a pretty concrete list of them, but there are people like John McCain, and obviously a lot of people that are going to be gone here before long. And he's exactly right about one thing. For a long time, it worked. For a long time, it sort of worked to sort of keep a lot of bad things about like gun legislation and things like that from getting through the Senate. And I was always appreciative of it. But
gun control legislation.
Exactly. But over the past, it's a whole different game now. Over the past 10 years, these people have so wrecked the institution, they've wrecked everything about it, that it may as well just be an up or down popular vote in the Senate. And the only reason that there isn't that is because of the Senate's own rules. Now, Mitch McConnell, obviously, in order to change those rules, is going to at least need his own caucus. So I think that's what he's trying to say there.
Moving to the other side of the hill, what do you make of Paul Ryan's insistence on another defeat and a disastrous vote today that he should, I would think tonight he feels like a fool no matter what his other comprehension problems are. That message has to have gotten through to him.
I don't understand this, Lou. I don't understand why they are not learning a lesson about how to do politics from Donald Trump. Keep it simple. Keep it straightforward. Make it so that people understand it. What the American people want is for the border to be secured. Whether you want it secured because you don't want illegals streaming across the border or because you don't want to see families separated, everybody agrees that if you had a secured border, then we wouldn't have any. Everybody would be in favor of that. Right. That is what they need to focus on. And to sit there and listen to all these politicians, and they're in both parties right now. To listen to them talk about all of these people at the rights of all of these people at the border, they're concerned about everybody. They want to represent everybody. None of them are American citizens, right. And I'm just wondering why aren't they fighting this enthusiastically to protect Americans' rights? And at the end of the day, Donald Trump is the only one doing it.
Yeah, he's the only one doing it. He's being besieged, though, to go along with the open borders, amnesty crowd, because they have held sway, particularly in the national left-wing media. They've been able to bombard disinformation across the country. The reality is, he promised to put up that border wall. We have $70 billion of illegal drugs coming into this country from Mexico. That doesn't include fentanyl, which is now the #1 drug coming across that border. It doesn't include $50 billion in remittances from foreign nationals working in this country, sending that money back to their. It doesn't include the $100 billion deficit the president is talking about, the trade deficit. This is a huge amount of money. It's why there is so much corruption around it. And be sure of this, Charlie. There's corruption on both sides of that border, and people are being. Their position on this is being bought.
Well, and just look at, on our side of things, you have so many people with a vested interest in whether it's cheap labor or free labor or whatever it is, that there's a lot of people that have a vested interest in it, and a lot of these people put pressure on people in Washington. The only people who don't have an enthusiastic support from these people are regular, average American voters, and Donald Trump is the only one who represents represents them. It is an absolute war zone on the border. We are getting gamed at every turn, and if it were happening in any other country, there would literally be tanks on the border, and the invasion would be stopped. And Donald Trump is so smart to just stick with that, and we can deal with the other stuff. We can deal with the dreamers, deal with all that stuff later. Let's stop the flow across the border. Period. Hard stop.
Hard stop. Charlie Hurt, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Thanks so much. Let's go to Fargo, North Dakota, if we may right now. Go to Shields Arena. There you are. Look at that crowd that has gathered to hear the President of the United States. President Trump set to speak at the Make America Great Again rally in just the next few moments. Right now, I'm being joined by the Daily Caller editorial director, Vince Colanese. Good to have you with us, Vince. Defense attorney Rebecca Rose Woodward. Rebecca, great to have you with us.
Thank you.
And let's start with first the president's winning streak extending in the Supreme Court. What a run he has had. The travel ban, big labor with a tremendous defeat today. The faith-based decisions on faith-based organizations all are going the right way as far as the president and the Republican Party is concerned. His winning doesn't get tiresome, to me at least.
I tell you, his winning is consistent with what he promised the American people. He promised them a very specific agenda, and he's getting it. Now we have a Supreme Court judge retiring, and he will be able to appoint yet another. And we may see Ruth Bader Ginsburg throughout the course of this presidency retire as well. Mm-hmm. So there might be really a Supreme Court that is very consistent with the values of the people who nominated and then elected the president.
Yeah, it is quite something, Vince. And to see the president today, he is animated, he's energized, and he hadn't even gotten to the rally yet, where he draws a great deal of energy from the crowd and they from him.